Joining us from Security in Depth, the CEO, Michael Connory. Welcome. We're going to talk IT. We've had a number of problems with securities, we've had problems with viruses, we've had cyber attacks, but there's a problem that's just cropped up overseas, and it primarily stems from a company in Canada that's been doing the wrong thing, it appears now. What's the story and how did it come about, and what's the latest?
Okay. So a company called MindGeek owns a number owns a number of porn sites around the world. The biggest one being Pornhub.
Okay.
Pornhub is the third most visited website in the globe. It's visited more than Amazon. It's visited more than a whole range of other ones. Facebook. It's the most visited website.
Says a lot about our society, doesn't it?
It does say a lot about our society.
What safeguards have we got?
Well, there is no safeguards. Any child with access to Google and an internet browser could go online and actually see any of these videos. Now, the really interesting component here is not that it's free porn, and there's 13 million videos, or there was 13 million videos uploaded onto this site. They've just literally taken down 10 million videos, and the reason why they've taken down 10 million videos is that a New York Times columnist wrote an article after an investigation stating that many of the videos are unverified. So 10 million videos are unverified, have never been looked at, never been reviewed, and what has happened is that a significant amount of child pornography has gone up onto Pornhub and freely accessible to anybody anywhere in the world.
So their practices have come into question, and they've literally just, whatever they've received, they've put it straight up.
They've put it straight up.
That's appalling.
It is. Not only is it appalling, there's also a number of rape scenes, a number of other types of scenes that are completely inappropriate for any community that have been uploaded. Now, we know that over the last 24 hours, Pornhub have actually deleted 10 million of these videos because they're unverified. They've never been reviewed. They've got 80.
But have they been forced, or they've done it because they saw there's a legitimate reason we better tidy up our act?
They've done it because the US Senate has asked them to come.
Asked them or threatened them?
Will threaten them to. Will actually ask them to come to Washington to explain their practices.
Oh dear.
But the challenge around this is, let's take an Australian viewpoint, is that this is a platform, and they've claimed that as a platform, they're not responsible for the content that's actually sitting on their platform. Much like Facebook, much like Twitter, and...
Look, the world at the moment is looking to legislate against Facebook, against a host of other so-called platforms for some of their practices and some of the ways they do what they do. And it's like always the contract, did you read the fine print? Make sure you read the fine print. We're finding out so much more. And to think that there are agencies and platforms like Pornhub that are being visited in the numbers you speak of is not a surprise, because that's the way of the world, unfortunately. But what really shatters any illusion is that you would think that any professional organisation would monitor, have some idea of what's going to air. And here you're telling me now that they've had millions of videos that no one's checked, no one's verified, and they've just freely made them and distributed them on their so-called platform.
Absolutely.
So we talk about parental controls.
Yes.
Yeah? Security in depth, IT specialists, you guys have been creating safeguards and support for a host of businesses and homes. What can parents do, what can others do to protect themselves from sort of these sites? Are there parental controls that you can put in place that will give you at home, or you at the business, make sure that your employees are actually doing the work and not spending their hours viewing or going through lists of different videos that they shouldn't be?
Well, there's a number of controls that you can put in. You can blacklist a website, which means that you can go into your browser or into your back-end system and say, this website is illegal, it's not appropriate, it doesn't have appropriate content, and as such...
How easy is it to do if you're not tech literate?
It takes about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Well, what you do is you go onto your settings, you'll click on settings, you'll click on websites. You can click on websites to block, and you can list Pornhub as one of those websites to block.
Okay.
Now, on securityindepth.com.au, we have a video that goes through that particular process.
Fantastic.
So it's there freely available to see.
Okay.
The other thing about this is that adults and parents need to have a conversation with their children. It's important that adults have a conversation with their children and discuss the content and discuss these sites and have an open, transparent...
You're absolutely right about that, but we've already seen so many parents bring into the home these young devices, and they're used initially as an entertainment tool, then as an educational tool, and I bet that there are great numbers of parents around the country and around the world that have no idea that they also open up a gateway to that sort of programming, that sort of product that they shouldn't have access to.
Absolutely. The other thing about this is child nudity.
Child nudity.
Child nudity and kids sharing images of themselves that perhaps they shouldn't have.
Oh, yeah.
Because one of the things that we've been able to recognise with Pornhub is that because anybody can upload, what's happened is that there's been revenge porn, where kids have broken up and one partner has posted online into Pornhub the images of their girlfriend or boyfriend
or whatever
in a sexual act, and it's available to anybody in the world. And it's a form of abuse because these images, these videos can be downloaded and have been able to be downloaded time and time again and put on other sites. And these images and films stay there forever. And for a young child, for a 16, 17-year-old young person, to have this image, these videos there for potentially the rest of their life.
Talking about that, it reminds me of a story that just emerged in the last couple of weeks in Britain. A young footballer had been involved in something that he thought was pretty innocuous at the time, but always lived with this fear that this vision may come to light one day, and so it did come to light only recently, and he was shocked and traumatised. So you're right, it's there, and people, it's open to abuse. And that's the great challenge. What can we do? Are we likely to see our service providers taking a more responsible stance? Or are they going to take the stance of Pornhub and say, hey, we're only a platform, or we're only a gateway?
At the moment, we're only a gateway.
Oh dear.
So the Australian government has to take control here. They have to legislate. They have to bring these organisations, these so-called platforms, to account for the information that's put on and shared with the wider community. It's great to call themselves a platform, but...
What do you make of Josh Frydenberg's attempts to get Facebook and others to address some of their challenges that they're having at the moment with the material that they're just picking up willy-nilly across all the news sites, and then making it part of the Facebook programming, and of course costing journalism in this country and other jurisdictions an enormous amount of money and damage.
I think it's horrible what Facebook and what Google are doing. Yeah. I think that Frydenberg is actually right on the money.
Will he get a chance to get something up and running?
I think he will. I think if he gets the opportunity, and especially if he gets another term, it's not going to take a month, it's not going to take a year, it's going to take a number of years to make this happen. But it's an important piece of legislation, and it's important to do because they are. Facebook, Google, all of these organisations, Twitter, they're just spilling out information and news reports that other people are working on and deserve responsibility for.
Michael Connory, as always, thank you very much for taking us behind the scenes, giving us a glimpse of some of the challenges and some of the problems that is facing us in the IT world. Michael Connory, CEO of Security in Depth. If you want to know any more, make sure you reach out to them. Security in Depth, and Michael Connory is the man in the studio. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, George.